show is called Dog-Eared Atlas. I had a show several months ago that was called Brand New Atlas, and it's kind of playing on that. The Brand New Atlas was playing with the idea of this new house that I was living in and renovating at the same time. I was working in it in this 90-degree upstairs studio that was really just a bunch of plywood boards, and it was a mess, and I was using all the materials that the construction guys would leave on the floor downstairs. Even my friend came by, and it was all just plain drywall, just tacked up at that point. And he would take a marker and he would write and draw all over the walls. It was really, really raw. At that point, you know how when you're in a space, you get a sense of that space. You know that in your own home, you could probably get up in the middle of the night at 2 a.m. and walk to your bathroom with your eyes closed, because you know step for step how big the space is, where the walls are. It becomes kind of this spatial memory that you have inside of your head that's aside from just visual. I'm really fascinated in the sense that while I was building the house, it was becoming that. It was becoming a place that would be embedded in my memory. I still have dreams of my grandparents' houses from when I was a small child, and I'll still walk around in those houses, and sometimes the rooms kind of grow bigger and there's more rooms that add on. So what these are, these 4 dogs, which is kind of a little play on the Dog-Eared Atlas as well. These 4 are my studio floor. So this is actually a very, very literal map of the floor, and I laid those papers onto them. There were 2 at a time, and this is very strong, hardy wallpaper that I got from the thrift store down in New Orleans. And I would lay it on the ground while I was working on the walls. The 2 that have the radials on them, that radial is actually a rotating fan. And so it would pass back and forth and that radial, and the dogs were on the floor in front of that radial fan. And I would go, and every so often I'd make some marks on the wall, and then I'd go and I'd trace one of my dogs. And then I go back up, you'll see some of those. I have a very hyper dog, which shows up only a couple times. That's a skinny one. And then my pit bull, you kind of have to drag across the floor to get him to move anywhere. So that's one that shows up a lot more, and he's traced quite a bit more. He shows up a lot. We have their bones in there a few times. Those also have the drywall mesh tape that they're filled in with. You'll see spatulas for drywall putty. You'll see some cutting blades, of course, they're retracted. Cans of paint. My dogs were carrying around a construction glove for a while. It became their favorite toy. So that one shows up here. And in this space, again, the space and the memory of it is really important to me. This was a rubbing of the old wood in the studio space underneath the floor that went over it. So I rubbed all of those pieces of wood and then traced over, and that became the real floor representing the floor in the studio that was there. So that's kind of the starting of these maps. Going from there, I kind of moved into being out on the water and doing some pieces. I go out to Shell Beach a lot. It's one of my favorite places to go, and I go out fishing. I'll cross the Mystico in my little canoe, and I'll watch these shrimp boats go by. And these shrimp boats are just, they're fascinating to me. They're otherworldly. They're kind of ghostly in their own way. And the fact that they're both that and magical and so practical and everyday to the people who use them is really interesting to me. This map is actually, it is a map of the tidal patterns in that month when I mapped these boats, and that is one particular boat that was coming into the canal as I was taking pictures. So I snapped it, and I snapped it again, and I snapped it again, and it's just catching it with the guys actually walking back and forth on the boat. You have some crab nets that became the sun there. And another thing I really love about those is the birds that just swarm these shrimp boats as they come in. It's like a cloud. They're waiting for, of course, any droppings or anything that they throw off the boat. You'll see even fishes jumping around them. It really is quite amazing to me. In there, in a few places too, I like the overlap of remembered space versus immediate space. And so this is also projected image. I took these photos and I brought them back from Shell Beach, and they are projected onto this paper. At the same time, I would have music playing on some screens. I have words on some screens, so every so often you'll find some numbers, some dates, maybe like a Yahoo Mail symbol. I think I actually had some words from an Eminem song in there somewhere that I think I painted over. So there's a lot of overlaying of real time and remembered time kind of playing against each other. And I really like that a lot as well. These two pieces were a little bit of an experimentation in making paper. Those are materials that I took from Shell Beach. You can see the shells embedded in there. When I went to Shell Beach, I was really fascinated by the striated levels of the ground, the fact that it's eroding away. You go and you can see sand, a layer of almost solid shell, more sand or soil, and it just goes up and up and up. Or on the other hand, it's going away as we watch. Again, I'm really, really interested in the wetlands and the fact that they are kind of eroding away, and attempts to fix them, which I play with actually a little in the video. But that was kind of playing with that and the idea of these shrimp boats, again, going in and out. Playing a little bit more on the wetlands, this piece is a collaboration with my brother. My brother is a photographer and an educator. He lives in California. It has some throwbacks to childhood and a little bit of magical realism. What we had joked about for a few years is the idea, and it's not, I shouldn't say joked, we talked about, is he has a lot of wildfires there. There's no water. It's drought. They're not allowed to water their gardens or take long baths. Meanwhile, I have more water than I need, but the land is slowly eroding, falling into the ocean, football field by football field of size. And the children and us kind of discussed, well, would it just be so easy? I'll mail you some land, you mail me some, or vice versa, I'll mail you some water, you mail me some land. We got this solved, right? It's no problem. So really, this is what we did. I went out to the swamps and I gathered some swamp water, and that's me on the left there. And meanwhile, he's going out to the hills and he's gathering some soil from the hills. He's out in Pacific Grove. So he's bringing that back to me, I'm bringing that back to him. And we indeed did mail these back and forth to each other. And then we brought them out into our environs when we received them and kind of put them back out into each other's environments. And just to be safe, not to send any little creepy crawlies from either place, I did bake the soil for a little while. So everything's fine. So this is the land being pulled out by the tides, a force that's bigger than us. But this is also about, again, that erosion, pulling that land out. All that land is going out, and then we're getting all the salt water that's causing more and more erosion. So it does have a little bit of an environmental statement as well. And these pieces are playing with that just a little bit more. Not only the environmental factors, but the structures of the water that are still fairly new to me. I'm actually a northerner, a Chicagoan, going way back. So going out to the wetlands is still almost like going on vacation for me. I look out at all these structures, I talk to all these boatsmen, And this is a completely different world than the cornfields I grew up in. The lifting bridges are fascinating. The fact that you've just got these two sticks and this whole street goes all the way up, and then and these boat goes under, is amazing. And those are the things that, again, as a child, I used to build and try to drive my little toy cars over and under. So I liked juxtaposing that bridge, that lift, that man-made structure with, again, that water that is doing its own motion in and out. It's got its own natural cycle, its natural motion. And the other piece is it's right outside of Shell Beach, and I have no idea what it is. So if anyone could tell me, I would be so grateful. It's this piece on the left. And I've driven by it so many times, and it just looks alien to me as a structure. I know that it was some sort of storage. It's probably only for gravel or sand or something of the sort, but the fact that it's just standing there unused, and then you go on to these shrimp boats, I like the kind of mystery that it has sitting out in the middle of all this water, and imagining that it's sending out, I don't know what, that's kind of part of the mystery, these little mystery mud nodules into the air. My cow is, it's a cow. It's a cow that I drove by on my way to Shell Beach. And I take a lot of pictures as I go in and out. I've taken pictures of roadkill and painted it. I've taken pictures, and actually this one, I was kind of working in and out of several different bodies of work. I wasn't sure what direction I was going in. It was a struggle piece. And so the cow is almost kind of looking at in a confrontational manner. It's like, okay, I'm just going to try and go in what direction this takes me. And I kind of liked the challenge that the cow gave me when I walked up to him. I was like, okay, I'll let him look out from this. And he can challenge, and people can make their own decision about it. So it's my confrontational cow.
Did you make that from a photograph like you did from the...
I did, but it's not projected. That one I just worked from the image. In fact, none of that is projected. I also use these swirls a lot. The swirls are so many different things. They're bacteria, they're cycles, they're water. They just have to do with little bits and pieces of nature around us that we ignore and can't control.
What inspires your color palettes?
A lot of these particular pieces, quite honestly, are what was up in my studio that wasn't in boxes. And it was kind of, I didn't go and buy, especially these pieces, I didn't go and buy new paints. I only had rolls of wallpaper and some highlighters and some construction materials. And so I ran with that and tried to make the most. It was like, okay, how can I work with this and make it work together? But I do also have, I like to, I don't want to say, I like to surprise people with colors. I like to use really decorative imagery that you might see on a wallpaper in a really nice home, and then kind of slap a really bright turquoise onto that. Pinks and oranges, very much the same. So those work their way into the palette quite a bit, and you're starting to see that back in these as I start to unpack my paints a little bit more.